Alright, today we're going to be talking about ratios and proportions. A ratio is just a comparison of two amounts. A ratio can be written in words as a fraction or with colon notation. However, in math class, we're going to concentrate on writing it in fraction notation, such as the fraction I have written. So usually we're comparing two things. In this case, I'm comparing the number of boys in a class to the total number of students. 15 boys to 31 students. I can use ratios to solve for missing information, such as if I drive 28 miles and I only use 1 gallon of gas, and I want to find out how many total gallons I'm going to use for a trip that takes me 328 total miles, I can set up equivalent ratios, set them equal to each other, and find for the missing information. There are two ways I can solve for this missing information. I can use a giant 1, and I can find out how many times 28 goes into 328, or I can use a method called cross multiplication, and I can do 328 times 1 gallon, and then divide that by 28, and that will give me what X is. So when I do that cross multiplication of 328 times 1, obviously you get 328, divided by 28 gives me about 11.7. So I'm probably going to need about 12 gallons of fuel to go that 328 miles of my trip. So when I'm using a denominator in that original ratio of 1, it didn't make my proportion too messy. But let's look at another case. So here's a problem. If 5 songs can be downloaded for $6, it wants to know the cost of 7 songs. Notice that when I'm setting up the ratios, I have songs on the top of both proportions, and I have the money on the bottom of both of those ratios in the proportion. So then I can cross multiply and find the missing information. So I would do 6 times 7, and then I would divide that 42 by 5. And that would give me $8.40. Now I could also find a giant 1. So when I do 7 divided by 5, I get 1.4. So that means I would have to multiply 6 times 1.4, and that would give me $8.40. So I can also solve it that way as well. So let's look at this next problem. There are 220 boys in 8th grade, which is 40% of the 8th grade population. How many total students in 8th grade? So we can also use ratios and proportions to solve this problem. So percent, we know, is always out of what number? I hope you said 100. So 40% is 220. So notice the 40% is on the top of that ratio, and 220 is also on the top of this ratio, and we want to know 100% of the students on the bottom. So go ahead and use our method of cross multiplying to find that missing number. I hope you got 550 total students, because that's the correct answer. 220 times 100, and then you divide your answer by 40 to get 550 total students.